and welcome. I am DEJI360. Well, we're in the month of May, and as you can imagine, it's been all about the national minimum wage. Of course, we had the Labor Day, that's Workers' Day, not quite long ago, and so it's not surprising at all that the biggest talking point in the country today is the national minimum wage, which, of course, well, we understand the government, of course, and the labor unions are still working on it. But then President Bola Tinubu has assured the organized labor that the issues that prevented the tripartite committee on minimum wage now from reaching a consensus would soon be resolved, and that workers' days of worries over their living wage would be gone. The president's assurance came after labor unions in the country gave the government a May 31st deadline to come up with a realistic and reasonable new minimum wage for Nigerian workers. Now, President of the Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, Joe Ajero, and his counterpart in the Trade Union Congress, TUC, Festus Osifo, were unanimous that the 30,000 naira current minimum wage has been grossly eroded by current economic realities and inflationary pressure, including food inflation, hike in energy costs, and of course transportation costs and others. Now, they insist that a new living wage of nothing short of 615,000 naira should be expeditiously approved by the Tinubu administration before the end of May. And while NLC boss Ajero has described as mischievous the salary increase of between 25% and 30% for some category of civil servants announced by the president on Tuesday. Now, back in January, the government had inaugurated a 37-man tripartite committee on national minimum wage with a mandate to recommend a new national minimum wage for the country. But the committee is yet to conclude its assignment, and that's what everyone is waiting for. And the president has given the assurance that, that the committee will conclude its work and then a formal announcement would be made. So everyone is waiting to find out what the new minimum wage would be. Labor, of course, is asking for 615,000 naira. The question is that realistic? How many states can actually pay that? But joining me now from Abuja to discuss this further is the National President, Amalgamated Union of Public Corporations, Benjamin Anthony. Also with us here in the studio in Lagos is Public Affairs Analyst Nelson Ekujimi. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the program. Let me start with you, Mr. Anthony. You union members are asking for 615,000 naira as a national minimum wage. How realistic is that demand?
Okay, thank you for inviting me to speak on this very important matter. Actually, we are realistic in what we are asking for, because when you look at the breakdown of the 615,000, that is the how we arrive at it. You will agree with us that we are also reasonable in what we are asking for. And issue of realistic, yes, if you look at after the removal of the fuel subsidy, you can see what the country is getting, and you can see that the price of goods and services have gone 250% in the market.
Absolutely.
And so when you look at it, for example, we pick the cost of a one-bedroom flat at 40,000 per month, and I doubt it whether in Abuja, Lagos, or Port Harcourt you will get a one-bedroom flat at 40,000 naira per month. And when you look at the price of feeding, when you look at feeding, it's 9,000 for 6 members of household per day. So when you look at it with the cost of foodstuff in the market and other things to prepare food, 9,000 is not enough to feed 6 people in a day. When you look at the before the increase on electricity, is 20,000 naira per month. So I don't know where you can now buy a unit of electricity for 20,000 whether it will be enough in a month. If you are and if you make mistake to be on the band A line, that is a 12 hours light you will get from that 20,000.
I understand. There's no question at all, Mr. Anthony. There's no question at all that what you're saying is actually right and quite correct. No doubt at all. But then, do you think the government, I'm not just talking about the federal government alone, I'm talking about state governments as well, because we're talking about national minimum wage here. So it doesn't just apply to the federal government, it applies to states across the country. It also applies to the private sector as well, because they have to go by the national minimum wage. So the question is, do you think they would be able to pay this amount of money? Because as we speak now, even some states, we understand, have not been able to pay the current 30,000 naira minimum wage.
Yeah, let me start from the last issue of some states could not pay. I'm telling you that act is just act of, can I say, wickedness, because there's no state governor that can say he cannot pay 30,000 naira. They just refuse to do it. Okay, now, why should a state governor take 800 to 1 billion naira security vote in a month? And still, we don't have, we have insecurity in the country. And in most of those states, it's just that people are not committed to human welfare. People are just intentionally refusing to take care of the workers. Most of the state governors, I'm going to tell you that they see the workers as liability. Coming to the present, how much were they taking? Some were taking 6 billion naira a month before the removal of subsidy. They are now taking from 10 to 14 billion in a month. So you can see that what they are getting now has increased. And if you talk of private sector, you see, if there's no money in the hands of the Nigeria people, then even if the private sector produce what they want to produce, nobody will buy. But if you have money and in your hands, go to many houses, you will see that they lack one or two things there. But if there's money, they can go and then pick those things, and you discover that the money will begin to circulate. So the private sector, to me, they will be able to pay. And let me tell you, the private sector, before now, most of them are paying more than the 30,000 because they have a system of salary review. Is it biannually or yearly or biannually? They have that practice, and they adhere to that practice. So some of them are paying more than the 30,000 naira.
I mean, there's no question at all that you're right. Some are paying more than the 30,000 naira. But, you know, there's a difference between 30,000 naira and 615,000 naira. It's a whole world of difference. But I'm going to come back to you. Let me bring in Nelson Ekujimi here. Okay. Nelson, you look at this demand. There's no question at all that, you know, on the basis of what you have today, the galloping inflation we have, you know, you look at food inflation, you look at the hike in electricity tariff and all of that, you know, challenges everywhere. The price of things have just more than tripled or even quadrupled in some cases. But then, do you think the 615,000 naira demand is actually realistic?
Well, thank you very much. I think we must recognize that there's this saying that if wishes were us, beggars will write. So the demand by labor is within their rights to, you know, to make that agitation. But we must not run away from the fact that at the negotiation table, other stakeholders will also bring in their own parameters. When they came up with this 615,000 naira and, you know, started giving ultimatum, we could see that just yesterday, the chairman of the Governors Forum had to respond that they are also studying the situation, and, you know, the private sector is also there. They are battling with a lot of challenges to keep their business afloat.
Exactly.
So if the labor is coming with 615,000 naira, monthly minimum wage, you should expect that the state governments will come up with their own parameter of what they can pay. The organized private sector will also do the same. Same with the federal government. I listened to the Mr. Anthony talked about state governments getting 3 times, their usual allocations in a month. But you must recognize that states do not exist to pay salaries of workers alone. There are other competing demands, for government to fulfill. So for me, the 615,000 naira is within their purview. It could be they have arrived at this so that they will have a bigger or higher bargaining power when the other stakeholders also bring their own parameters, what they can pay to the negotiation table. So it's within their right. One cannot begrudge them. But it's not a one-way. It's not a one-way horse race.
But then when you begin to hear the labor union leadership now say, look, it's either 615,000 or nothing, as we heard, for instance, the leadership of the NLC and the TUC say that it's 615 or nothing. Doesn't that make the negotiation sort of difficult?
No, it doesn't, because if you have followed the trajectory of the labor leadership under the present labor union, the present leadership, you become used to statements like that, which shows that for this leadership of labor, it is more about confrontation than engagement. So when you are saying it's 615,000, I think they need to be tutored about the tenets of collective bargaining. When you go to the negotiation table as a union, and that is what permeates in the industrial system. So the labor union today, under the leadership that we have, is one that is fond of making statements that you ask, are these people in tune with the ethics of their office? Are they in tune with the realities that they are carrying? The trust of a majority of workers that they represent. Because if they are, they will recognize that statements that you make must be statements that preach peace, that must be statements that preach settlement, must be statements that talk about the negotiating ethics of give and take. So the agitation or the demand that it is either 615,000 or not, we wait to see how it goes. But you can be rest assured that if they are making these demands, I hope they know they are not the only ones on this table. There are other stakeholders, and if you look at the Nigerian society today, almost over 90% of the workforce are in the unorganized labor system. So yes, are they also speaking for those ones? No, absolutely not.
But now I'm still coming to Mr. Anthony, but let me ask you this, Nelson. As we speak today, there are quite a number of states that have still not implemented the 30,000 naira national minimum wage. Quite a number of states have still not been able to pay. There's no question at all that there is every need for a new national minimum wage. I mean, the parameters are just not, they are not sustainable. I mean, when you look at the current situation of things, there's just no way 30,000 naira can be sustainable. But the question is, for those states that have not been able to pay the 30,000, I'm just wondering, how do they deal with this?
Well, it's unfortunate that as we speak, those states are in breach of the laws of the Federal Republic, because
nothing can be done.
Yes, no, it's something. I think it is the responsibility of the labor unions to galvanize workers in those states, and take this matter up, legally. I don't see the reason why we have a minimum wage of 30,000 since 2019, and in 2024, some states are yet to comply. And rather than bother themselves about how do we ensure that workers in those states also enjoy the privileges of the law that stipulates 30,000 naira minimum wage, we are calling for 615,000 or nothing. So if we go to 615,000, and those ones, I remember I saw a caption somewhere where the labor leader said in the state, workers were still being paid 8,000 naira. That is a clear violation of the law. And it is not bothered, it's not looking at how do we address the plight of workers in those states. Or are those ones not important, for their interest to be taken into consideration? I'm worried. So this present agitation, as much as it's within their right. It's, you know, it's legitimate, because like we have all agreed, the economic realities cannot accommodate 30,000 naira any longer. But we must also be focused on those who have not been able to enjoy the benefits of the provisions of the law. Those governors or those governments or local governments or even the private sector that are breaking the law with regards to the new to the 30,000 minimum wage that is existing till now, needs to be taken up judicially. The labor union should take them to the National Industrial Court and let the courts, you know, give a ruling on that, whether the 8,000 naira is for workers in their state, whether it's their own idea of a national minimum wage. You know, I think the courts will interpret that.
It's actually scandalous. Let me come to you, Mr. Anthony. You look at some state governors that they've gone ahead now, even if you like, you could say that they've actually preempted the tripartite committee or that negotiation going on now for national minimum wage. A good example is Edo State, where the governor of that state has announced 70,000 naira as the minimum wage in the state, not even waiting for any pronouncement at all from this tripartite committee. How do you reconcile that now with what is going with the work of that tripartite committee? I mean, no pronouncement has been made, and here you have a governor who has come out to say, look, it's going to be 70,000 naira.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, on that, the announcement of 70,000 naira by the Edo State governor will not affect the work of the tripartite committee.
But don't you think he's sending a signal that, look, this is how much we can pay, this is how far we can go. So irrespective of what the committee comes out with, we're just telling you that this is what we can pay.
No, in his announcement, he also said that whatsoever the tripartite committee and federal government agrees on, he is going to comply by it. And you should know Edo State have a character of even paying more than the minimum wage. So there he said it clearly. If federal government and the labor unions and all stakeholders agree, let's say, example, 150 or 200,000, he is going to comply with it. So to us, it's nothing. It will not affect our work.
Now, don't you fear that you know that this situation has to be managed carefully now, so that it doesn't cause inflation to even go above beyond what we currently have? Because you know, it's good to pay more, no doubt at all, but you also have to look at the side of inflation. Say, for instance, if the insistence is on that 615,000 naira, and you look at the population of the workforce now, and people are paid 615,000 naira, what do you think could happen to inflation?
You see, when it comes to workers, government will be talking of inflation. I don't think it will affect whatsoever we arrived on at, will not affect inflation. If you look at, after the removal of subsidy, some again get 100% increase in their monthly allocation. And you see, it does not affect inflation. And a lot of things are happening in the money market. It does not affect inflation. So we continue to wonder if we are talking of worker salaries, government will start talking, this thing will affect inflation. But when it comes to their own, it is not affecting any inflation. So I don't think it will.
Okay.
And you see,
Go on.
And you see the issue of this salary and all this inflation we are talking. You see, the issue in our country is that there are some things government is supposed to put in place that will even control the inflation and even make the worker feel comfortable. It's not all about money. If you have good transportation arrangement for the worker to come to office and go back, very organized one, it will also improve on his welfare. If you have good hospitals, good education for the children, and good housing accommodation, that the worker will, even if it's on mortgage, good mortgage arrangement, that he will get it, and every evening he gets back home and hides himself there. I think
I get your point.
Reduce the pressure on increase of money.
I get your point, but unfortunately we've run out of time. But let me just quickly ask you, and I would want your answer to be as brief as possible. What is your own organization? That's the Amalgamated Union of Public Corporations. Now, what is your organization doing about some of your members who work in states that are not paying even up to the 30,000 naira minimum wage? What are you doing about their situation?
Actually, we have written letters, series of letters to those state governors, and you know, the issue, the law, the Salaries and Wages Commission have the sole responsibility of looking onto those issues and taking actions on those states that are not implementing. Some states are even paying 18,000. Let me give you an information.
13,000?
Yeah.
18,000
naira salary. Yes.
So you can imagine. So how do workers there manage?
Well, you know, if I tell you that is why corruption is in the increase. And just because of those.
And that is why this whole idea of 615,000 naira is going to be very difficult. But anyway, let's just wait and see how it plays out. Gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for coming on the program. Thanks a lot for your time. Unfortunately, we haven't got enough time. We would have continued this discussion. Quite interesting, but there's no question at all that tripartite committee will conclude its job, and everyone waits to see what it comes out with. But no doubt, workers need some kind of pay raise
just
in
a
this
quick
country.
one.
Yeah, okay.
I think based on the developments with regards to states that are yet to fulfill.
You just heard him say some states 18,000.
I think it will not be out of place for the organized labor to even approach the National Assembly, you know, to make a law that, you know, makes it mandatory for maybe the salaries of workers in those states, you know, to be routed through a special intervention. In that way, they can be rest assured that they will get what is due them under the law, rather than, you know, allow this to just slide under the table like they have always done.
Because for the workers in those states where they are not even where they are not getting up to 30,000 naira, for them this whole discussion about national minimum wage would mean nothing at all.
It means nothing to them because they know they are not benefited from the past one. So why would they be a part of this negotiation?
It's a shame. It's a shame. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the program. Sir Benjamin Anthony, National President, Amalgamated Union of Public Corporations. Thanks a lot for your time. And Nelson Okujumi, Public Affairs Analyst, thanks a lot for coming on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back. Stay with us. Don't go away.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On DEJI360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
DEJI360, dissecting the issues.